Hey, did you hear? Disney celebrated its 100th anniversary last year, which technically makes it 101 years old, which is quite fitting for Disney if you think about it. So, Disney's 100th anniversary. The company really wanted to go all out on this celebration. They even created a brand new logo sequence to commemorate the occasion. So, how exactly did that celebration pan out? What exactly came out during Disney's 100th year? Well, there was Pixar's Elemental, which managed to answer the bold question no one ever asked, what if Zootopia, but with elements? Then there was the new live-action Haunted Mansion movie, which flopped in the box office, because Disney released it in July, so they could release it on Disney Plus 3 months later for Halloween. Oh, and Disney released 2 more live-action remakes, neither of which were really good. One of which did a really good job eliciting the dumbest criticisms from the dumbest people.
Also, by the way, with The Little Mermaid, can we also just mention that just from a scientific perspective, okay, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have someone with darker skin who lives deep in the ocean.
For reasons. Marvel released Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which almost made me apologize to The Incredible Hulk and Thor: The Dark World for ever considering them the worst Marvel movies. We didn't know how bad they would get. Disney managed to wring Lucasfilm out of everything it was worth by releasing yet another Indiana Jones movie, Dial of Destiny, otherwise known as the second Indiana Jones film that nobody asked for. Oh, and Disney Plus released several more Star Wars and Marvel miniseries. They exist. Okay, to be fair, not everything that was released during Disney's 100th year was a flop. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, while I didn't consider it to be as great as the first 2 movies, was still a very solid film and certainly ended the beloved Marvel franchise on a high note. And while I might be alone here, I actually thought The Marvels was a decent film. It was certainly better than the original Captain Marvel, and while I haven't watched Loki Season 2, I will take everyone's word for it that it was an excellent season of an excellent show. But then there was what was supposed to be Disney's biggest animated movie of the year, the film that was supposed to be 100 years in the making, Wish. Well, the name was certainly fitting. Everyone who watched it wished they saw a better movie. Okay, in fairness, I actually don't hate this movie as much as everyone else does. Personally, I felt it was okay. Admittedly imperfect, and it could have been a much better film, yet I also don't fault anyone else for dunking on it. Like, at all. So it really says something that, of everything that was released during Disney's big 100th celebration, the one thing that everyone loved and considered to be unequivocally good was a 7-minute short, Disney's Once Upon a Studio. When the short released last year, it was considered to be the saving grace of Disney's otherwise lackluster centennial celebration. Everyone loved this short, and why wouldn't they? It literally has every single Disney character from every single Disney animated feature. Of course the short was good. Or was it? 1 year later, was this a short that was worth 100 years for? Or was it Disney simply feeding its fans a bunch of memba berries? Was this short really that good? Okay, it was, but rhetorical question. Released on ABC on October 15th, 2023, and 1 day later on Disney Plus on October 16th, this is Once Upon a Studio. The short begins at the Roy E. Disney Animation Building in Burbank, California, where the Disney Animation Department is shutting down for the day.
To think of all those talented artists and wonderful characters who have been a part of the studio over the years.
If these walls could talk.
This scene is especially poignant for 2 reasons. First, these 2 animators provide a complementing contrast between the 2 generations of Disney animators, between the old school animators who had been around since the early days of the studios, and the younger animators who represent the fresh perspective of the current more diverse generation. And second, the older animator here is played by Bernie Madison, who was one of the Disney company's longest serving employees. When I say he was part of the old school animators who had been around since the studio's early days, I mean it. Born in 1935, Bernie Madison was inspired to become an animator around age 6 after watching Pinocchio in theaters. Upon graduating high school, he went to work for the Walt Disney Company, starting in the traffic department, before eventually working his way up into animation. He started as an in-betweener for 1955's Lady and the Tramp, and he continued working as an animator for 67 years, with his last work being for 2022's Strange World. Sadly, Bernie passed away in February 2023, only 8 months before the premiere of Once Upon a Studio. and for that reason, the short was dedicated in his honor and memory. Anyway, back to the short. Once the animators have left, none other than Mickey and Minnie Mouse come to life and leap out of their pictures. For this evening is a very special evening, what with it being the 100th anniversary of Disney Animation. To commemorate the occasion, Mickey and his friends set off to round up the other characters for a group photo, and wacky shenanigans ensue. Goofy ends up breaking the camera, but everyone cheers up after singing When You Wish Upon a Star, the camera is fixed, and everyone poses for the closing shot of the group photo. And that's pretty much Once Upon a Studio in a nutshell. It's an animated short that showcases more than 500 characters from more than 85 features and shorts created by Walt Disney Animation. And it's quite evident as to why this short became so beloved, because it showcases more than 500 characters from more than 85 features and shorts created by Walt Disney Animation. So, what else is there to say? Well, quite a lot actually. And I'll talk about it right after this quick break. Christmas is right around the corner, and what better gift to give your loved ones this holiday season than the gift of reading? Give them The Light Prince, Christmas Conundrum, a holiday-themed side story to the fantasy novel The Light Prince Grail. 1 year after her adventure into the magical world of Arden, Amber is set to take on her next big challenge, writing a school essay. She plans on writing about the holiday spirit, but upon talking to a few other classmates and people, she realizes that they don't seem to share her same love of the holiday season. Meanwhile, in the magical world of Arden, Fiona the Fairy prepares for her own world's winter celebration by setting off in search of the long-lost ornament, the Winter Star. In each of their respective stories, these characters come to learn the real reason behind the winter season. Also, be on the lookout for the Christmas Conundrum music album, which includes an original Christmas song based on the book.
Remember the reason for the season. It's more than ribbons, more than tags, much more than packages or bags.
Check out the other installments of the Light Prince fantasy series, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Learn more on jcalexanderwrites.com. And this holiday season, remember the reason.
So remember.
First, and I feel this really needs to be said, as great as this short was, it could have easily gone wrong. Many of Disney's attempts to self-aggrandize itself in recent years have come across as rather cringeworthy. Remember the Wreck-It Ralph sequel, Ralph Breaks the Internet? Of course you don't. That film was remarkably unremarkable. The only memorable part was when Disney decided to interrupt the film halfway through to advertise itself, especially with that cringy princess scene.
Were you poisoned? No. Cursed? No. Kidnapped or enslaved? No. Are you guys okay? Should I call the police?
And then there's the Simpsons specials on Disney+, which essentially amount to Disney remembering that they now own The Simpsons and demanding the animation team create content for their streaming service. Yeah, the less said about those, the better. But while those attempts by Disney to celebrate itself come across as transparently cynical, Once Upon a Studio doesn't. It feels like a genuine love letter to Disney Animation, and not just an anniversary special mandated by the higher-ups. And that's because, well, it wasn't. Quite the opposite, in fact. The company didn't mandate the short to the animation department. In fact, the animators were the ones who actually proposed it. Animators Trent Corey and Dan Abram came up with the idea for the short during the pandemic. They exchanged ideas with each other over Zoom calls, and even in the parking lot of fast food joints during their lunch breaks. They spent months creating the pitch for the short. Both of them feared that there wasn't an Olaf's chance in hell that it would ever get greenlit. And yet, as a Disney miracle, it was.
If there was ever a project to say no to, it would probably be this one because there's just so much to figure out.
We got a pitch together and we emailed Jennifer Lee out of the blue and just said, hey, Dan and I have been working on something together.
And she said, I don't know how, but we have to figure out how to make this.
From that moment forward, the studio just supported this project from top to bottom.
What makes this short great is that it's not just a self-congratulatory celebration of the Disney company as a whole. This wasn't about Marvel, or Star Wars, or Pixar, or the Muppets, or 20th Century Fox studios. This was about what people love most about Disney, what made it famous in the first place, the very backbone of the company, the animation. Schaefer Rowe's production said as much in his own review.
The key difference that makes this feel so much more genuine than Ralph Breaks the Internet is that this short is less about look how many brands we own, and more so look how many characters we made.
This was a celebration of all the Disney characters that have come to define the company over the years. And when I say all the characters, I do mean all the characters. More than 500 characters from 62 feature films, from Snow White, The Wish, and not just the animated movies, but also animated shorts, live-action hybrids, and even theme park attractions. See this little boy flying around in cat pajamas? He's from Back to Neverland, a short film about the animation process that was played during the Magic of Disney Animation Tour at Disney's Hollywood Studios in Walt Disney World. This short goes out of its way to give screen time to some of the more obscure characters from obscure films and features as well. And evidently, the short's biggest selling point is how all these characters are animated in the same animation style as their respective films. The computer animated characters from the 3D animated films are animated using the same character models from their movies. Well, at least the movies from Tangled onward. Characters from movies made before Tangled, like Chicken Little, Meet the Robinsons, and Bolt, had to have their characters models created from scratch for this short. And then there are the hand-drawn characters from the 2D animated movies, which were all animated through hand-drawn animation. And when I say hand-drawn, I mean on actual ink and paper. At least 80% of the characters in this film were hand-drawn. The animators really wanted to make these characters look authentic to the animation style of their respective films. They could have easily been like Ralph Breaks the Internet and turned all the 2D characters into 3D, or they could have simply animated the 2D characters digitally like most other shows and movies these days. But no, they dedicated themselves to animating these characters in such a way that they looked and felt like they leapt straight out of the film reel of their respective movies. And the animators evidently put 110% of their effort in making these diverse animated characters look and feel as though they all inhabit the same space together. If Song of the South and Mary Poppins proved that animation could blend well with live action, and Who Framed Roger Rabbit proved that animation can hold up alongside live action for an entire feature-length film, then Once Upon a Studio proves that different animation styles can blend well together, at least in a short like this. Then there's the voice acting. Most of the modern characters had their original voice actors reprise their role for this short. As for characters from older movies, they either had their voices played by new actors, or in some cases, used archival sound recordings.
Make it pink. Make it blue.
The filmmakers were especially adamant about using sound clips from Bobby Driscoll as Peter Pan and Cliff Edwards as Jiminy Cricket, as they did not want to recast those characters. That shows a lot of respect for the original actors, especially considering what Disney did last time concerning Bobby Driscoll's legacy. Yeah, the less said about that film, the better. And then there's the music. Of course, there's the iconic closing number with all the characters singing When You Wish Upon a Star. But then there's the other iconic moment, when Mickey Mouse takes time to reminisce over a portrait of Walt Disney himself, with the song Feed the Birds playing from Mary Poppins, as performed by Richard Sherman. No, I don't just mean the song written by Richard Sherman, I mean as performed by him. Yes, the other half of the iconic Sherman Brothers duo played this rendition of Feed the Birds, and not only that, but played it on the same piano in Disney's original office where the two brothers used to perform the song for Disney, what with it being one of his favorites. Yeah, Richard Sherman made a lot of cameo appearances in Disney movies up until his recent passing on May 25th, 2024. But that's enough about the technical aspects. What about the short itself? The premise itself is simple. Various Disney characters coming to life and preparing to take a group photo for the studio's anniversary. It's a delightfully chaotic scenario, and seeing how all the different characters act and react in that scenario is simply delightful. Disney is no stranger in crafting scenarios that bring its many characters together, from shows like House of Mouse to video games like Kingdom Hearts and Disney Heroes Battle Mode. And the best part of those crossovers is seeing how all these different characters interact with each other and bounce their personalities off of one another. Of course Anna and Elsa would get back at Hans by keeping him out of the group photo. Of course that one lady with the caffeine addiction would be hanging out at the coffee bar. Of course Flash the Sloth would be holding up the elevator. And of course Donald would be there to get annoyed. Of course Timon would call Olaf Frosty. Of course Ralph would call Mickey Garfield. Of course Antonio would be friends with all the animal side characters. Of course Ichabod Crane would narrowly miss being decapitated. Of course Goofy would be the one to break the camera. And while there are plenty of magical characters who could have fixed it with their magic, it's a nice touch to have Felix fix it. It's in its catchphrase after all. And there were plenty of other moments that were cut out of the film for time, like Captain Hook running away from Tuk Tuk a la Indiana Indiana Jones, and even a cringy moment where Yzma hits on Hercules. And of course, all of the characters pose in a grand cinematic group shot that Disney is undoubtedly making big bucks selling to fans. Truly a great way to end a great short to celebrate Disney's momentous 100th anniversary year, which admittedly was not so great. It's easy to be cynical about Disney, especially since the company has done so much in recent years to make people lose favor in it. What with it churning out its constant glut of live-action remakes, planning to release nothing but sequels and reboots in the foreseeable future, allowing Marvel and Star Wars to run out of steam, letting the Muppet franchise die on the vine, killing Blue Sky Studios, phasing out physical media, failing spectacularly with its Star Wars hotel, $2,500 per person per night? No wonder that flopped in less than a year. Switching out its free FastPass system with the pay-to-play Lightning Lane and Genie Plus, pricing out middle and lower class guests by prioritizing the experience of wealthier guests by raising prices and expenses. How much did that drink cost? Revamping its legacy attractions with mediocre versions based on newer, more lucrative IPs, planning to gut other legacy attractions for the sake of building newer rides based on newer, more lucrative IPs, making sure that every new attraction created in a foreseeable future is only based on newer, more lucrative IPs. Though not gonna lie, the Villain's Land does sound rather metal. Abusing legal loopholes to avoid lawsuits for wrongful deaths. Seriously, Disney, what the hell is wrong with you? Screwing over actors, screwing over animators, screwing over cast members, filing cease and desist orders against people for allegedly infringing on its IP, chipping away at copyright law to ensure that it maintains an iron grip on its own IP, and ensuring nothing new enters the public domain. Until recently, several prominent fans and influencers exposing themselves as creeps and defenders of creeps. Really living up to the name some jerk there, huh? If I had a nickel for every time Tony Goldmark defended a creep named Kyle, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't much, but it's weird that it happened twice. And pretending to care about the LGBTQ community by selling expensive rainbow merch and introducing its umpteenth first gay character, which is usually just a side character that can easily be edited out in countries that are vehemently anti-LGBTQ. Can't risk losing box office revenue in China, now can we? All while undermining animated series with gay rep, canceling live-action series with gay rep, hampering creatives from including gay rep, and doing absolutely nothing to market an animated movie whose main character is a gay person of color. Can't risk siphoning money away from Dances with Wolves in Space 2, now can we? And perhaps most egregious of all, doing absolutely freaking nothing while an anti-woke governor passes legislation rolling back rights for LGBTQ citizens, only to finally do something at the very last minute when that legislation passes by releasing an official statement that essentially amounts to wagging a finger at the man, calling him a very bad boy, and vowing to cease all future donations to politicians like him, only to be rewarded for all that by having that same megalomaniac threaten to wage his anti-woke crusade against you by threatening to revoke your theme park's special corporate privileges, and nearly succeeding in doing just that, only to have his evil plan thwarted at the last minute due to the ingenious cunning of your legal team. Eat DeSantis. Good luck being in charge of filling potholes and cleaning sewers, you pathetic Trump wannabe. Again, it's easy to be cynical about Disney. Not gonna lie, I've sort of fallen out of love with the company as well. I don't hate it by all means. I still like it, sort of. I don't love it like I used to. Not when I was a die-hard Disney adult, and certainly not when I was a little kid. But something like this really reminds me of why I love Disney, of what made me fall in love with it. This might have been the only silver lining in a year that was supposed to be Disney's golden centennial. Everything else might have missed the mark, but this short really succeeded in reminding us why we love Disney. It was a true love letter for the animators and the fans, and it shows that even when the company is going through dark times, even when the rest of us are facing dark times, Disney still shines bright. Once Upon a Studio was really that good. So, it's certainly been a long time since I uploaded a video like this. If you're wondering where I've been, the short answer is that life threw me a real curveball and I was unable to make or upload any videos. But I'm back again, and hopefully I'll be releasing more in the near future. Can't promise that they'll be regular, but at the very least they'll be semi-regular. At the very least I was able to release this video in time for Disney's anniversary. So until then, you know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to follow me on social media, and if you like good storytelling like I do, then check out my novel, The Light Prince Grail, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook, along with several other novellas. I even have a new story coming out next month. It's a holiday-themed one, just in time for the holidays. Isn't that exciting? I also plan on selling other merch, like stickers. Y'all like stickers. And music. Isn't that neat? Anyway, again, thank you for watching. Friendly reminder that Black Lives Matter, trans rights are human rights, and Jesus Christ is Lord.
I am also going to the lobby.